The drive starts right now.
Starts right now. Just living the dream.
Here's a guy who gets paid to talk.
1, 2, hold it back. You know what I mean? 1, 2, 3.
Happy Wednesday. This is The Drive on 252 Fox Sports Radio, 107.5 FM, WWNB, 1490 AM, worldwide, 252foxsports.com. Find us on the TuneIn Radio app. It's absolutely free. Just go to your app store, Google or Apple, and then type in TuneIn Radio, all one word, TuneIn Radio, not radio, just tune in. Just one word. Once you downloaded it, or if you're on your desktop, just go to tunein.com, find the search feature, type in WWNB. You can find us anywhere in the world as long as you got those intranets. Now, you can also ask your Alexa device to play WWNB. Just that easy. Find 252 Fox Sports on YouTube. Find 252 Fox Sports on Twitter or X. Find 252 Fox Sports on Facebook. Find The Drive with Mark Panichelli on Facebook, and that is me. I'm Mark Panichelli. Glad to have you aboard on this Wednesday. Literally yesterday, I have my Ravens guy on, Paul Whittington. I mean, he's diehard Ravens fan, and again, everything Ravens. Eats, breathes, sleeps Ravens. And so yesterday he's on the show, and we are talking about all of the stuff that's going on with the Ravens, and would they? And anyways, show's over. 5 minutes after the show's over, the Ravens decide, hey, John Harbaugh, him too. No, in all seriousness, John Harbaugh out. So that was bizarre and frustrating. We're going to talk about it today. David Fernandez, athletic director for the West Craven Eagles, is going to join me, which means we're going to talk some college basketball. That's right. Duke with a big win last night over Louisville on the road. Want to give a shout out to NC State. Nice win against Boston College tonight. Wake Forest, Miami. Playing some hoops. East Carolina's going to be in action as well at Temple. But we're going to talk some college hoops. That would also mean some Kansas basketball. We'll also talk some college football, some NFL, and, of course, West Craven sports. In fact, let's do it now. I want to welcome Coach David Fernandez, always coach to me, but athletic director for the West Craven Eagles. Is it too late for me to say Happy New Year?
No, it's not. Still feels like a new year, so we'll go with it. We'll roll. Good.
I am. And again, new year, but you're picking up from the holiday break. And I wanted to say that, one of the things that, I certainly notice, and I think most adults notice anytime you have some vacation time, kind of getting back in that flow, but dealing with, with kids, and certainly not only getting them back into, I would say for the sports folks, it's probably a little bit easier than the regular kids. It's kind of where I'm headed with this, because now mind you got to get used to going to class and all that stuff. But the fact that they still have the events, there's still basketball and wrestling and all that stuff's going on. In your years of working with the kids, would you say the athletes are more prepared after the holiday break to get back into the swing of things than say maybe the non-athletes at school?
Oh, 100%, Mark, 100%. I'm going to selfishly brag on athletes. I think they're probably more prepared than the regular students in the building. Probably get beat up for that, but they're just because they're on such a regimented schedule. We dictate for them as coaches, what they do every day.
Yeah.
Make sure you go to class. We check up on it. Make sure your grades are right. We check up on it. Make sure you're at, this spot for practice or a game, and we check up on it. So it just kind of, the regiment for an student athlete is a little bit different than the regular classroom. Not that there aren't some real smart, well-organized classroom kids, but to your point a little bit, yeah, we feel like athletes are always ready to go because especially right now in the winter season, they don't take time off. We haven't been in school, and I get that part. But they're here for practice every day. They're in the weight room. Our non-winter sports athletes are still working out around their weight room or on their own schedules with some skill development. So, student athletes stay pretty organized, and their schedules are full all the time, and so it's a little easier adjustment for them, I think.
All right, well, let's talk about back-to-back basketball. So the way I'm seeing it, right, there was North Pitt last night, and again, for folks that want to go check out, it's time. Let's get back in the swing of supporting the Eagles as well, but playing again basketball. And again, if I'm not wrong, it gets underway at 4:30 with the JVs, and it's is it Pamlico going to be?
No, I need to correct you on that one.
So.
Pamlico has dropped their JV boys program.
Okay.
So tonight is a varsity-only night.
Okay.
And so varsity girls will start at 5 o'clock here at West Craven High School versus Pamlico. The boys following should be around that 6:30 mark. But it's varsity only, 6:30 tonight here in Lorenzo Jones Gym. And, we split last night with North Pitt. Varsity girls dropped a close one. They had a rough third quarter, couldn't score. They dropped it. I think it was 5 points. I think it was maybe 50-45. And then our boys in an exciting kind of back and forth game, if you want to call it that. I think we were comfortably kind of ahead most of the night, but it just kind of seemed like it was back and forth with the pace of the game. But we were able to split there, and Coach Pittman, former girls coach at North Pitt, now the boys coach here, was able to get one on his former school last night. So that was exciting. But then we flip it around, like you said, so fast, and we're right back on the court again tonight versus Pamlico. And a couple nights from tonight, Friday night, we go down the street to Washington, one of the best boys basketball teams in Class 4A in the state of North Carolina. So that should be an eventful night, Friday night down the road at Washington. So just like you said, in wrestling, I'm probably getting ahead of you here a little bit.
No,
Mark,
go ahead.
But wrestling, on Saturday, we host the Three Rivers 4A Conference dual conference wrestling championships here in Lorenzo Jones Gym all day Saturday. Wrestling will start about 8:30, I think, and probably go to 3, 4, 5 o'clock at night on Saturday. But that'll be every boys and girls dual wrestling team in the conference here on Saturday. So it's we don't come back to the building and get in the classroom until Thursday tomorrow. But boy, we 3 basketball games, the conference dual wrestling championship Saturday. Man, we're in full swing.
And that's why I said the athletes will be more acclimated come Thursday when everybody gets to class. But you're right. So for everybody looking, and again, head on out tonight. Girls should be a great matchup between Pamlico and West Craven. And then, of course, the varsity will follow right after that. So check that out. And then as Coach Fernandez was saying too, Saturday morning, get there early for a busy day of wrestling at the gym. So, all right. I want to get to a couple of things, and I'm going to start with college basketball because I feel, because I feel like you were up last night watching overtime basketball, and I could be wrong. Maybe you got to sleep early, but I feel like anytime Darren Peterson is playing, you just want to watch him play, especially based on the circumstances of how bizarre it's been to have him in and out. But I mean, man, when he's been on the floor the last 2 nights or the last 2 games for Kansas, he's been phenomenal, including again last night that hard fought win against TCU. So, your thoughts on your Jayhawks?
I'll unpack a couple things with you real quick. Number one. The first thing I looked at my son and said, because we're going to be going there here in a few weeks for a couple games, that's what that building does. That's what that building does. I know it's crazy and people think if you're not a Kansas fan or whatever, but that's what Allen Fieldhouse does. The historic place in it. It's why it has a pulse. It's why it's mind-boggling to me. They're going to build a new Smith Center. That building creates comebacks. Like down 13 with 3 to go. 9 with 2 to go. And for Darren Peterson, I guess that's the second thing here, starting to get a little fan pushback, the fan base a little bit. Why is he not in there more? Is this really an injury thing? What's going on? But, yeah, like you said, the other night comes in, scores, I think, 20-some points in 21 minutes. I think it was like 25 points in 21 minutes. Last night comes in and scores 32 points and right around the same minute mark, injury or not. Comes in, gets the 3-point shot with just a second left, gets fouled, sets up, this is the quietest 16,000 people as you're going to find. But to sit there as a freshman and knock in 3 free throws to tie the game with just over a second left, and then the creativity with no timeouts left, TCU turns the ball over. We get the ball out of bounds with a 1.7 seconds left, and we get him coming off a screen and get a pretty decent look at a 3 to win the game at the buzzer. And he didn't play in overtime because of the injury, but he is just a special generational talent that, is he injured? Is he not injured? Is he on a minute count? Is he not on a minute count? Is the family involved? Not NLI money, all this. He is special when he is on the floor, and he's worth he's not one of the top NLI guys in the country, I will say that, but, he's worth every penny in NLI money. He's worth every minute you can watch of him. He's a generational talent. Don't know what that'll mean for the NBA other than they project him to be, a 1-2 pick, this summer. But, man, he's special to watch. He's fun to watch. I caught him a little bit both at Carolina and at NC State last month. And, he's fun. If you're a fan of basketball, he's fun to watch.
He is.
But if you want to stay local, man, Carolina's got one of those kids too. And Duke obviously has 3 or 4 of them. So, you want to stay more local. We've got some here in our state that are NBA caliber type fun guys to watch. And, college basketball, just say what you want to say about NLI, say what you want to say about the portal. College athletics is still fun. If you could set some of your personal thought processes of how our generation probably grew up with money and getting paid for college athletes and all that, man, it's still fun to watch, if you just want to sit back and watch the games.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm going to get to some ACC stuff, but I wanted to say to you, I mean, and the depth of competition in the Big 12 where Kansas get that win last night, but then you got this stretch of games where you got West Virginia, Iowa State, and Baylor in the next 3 games. And again, I don't have to tell you, but and TCU's I think TCU's a pretty good team as well. So I mean that stretch of games, this stretch of games is going to be quite the gauntlet for Kansas. But as I said, makes it fun to watch, or as you were saying, makes it fun to watch.
Absolutely. Big 12 is, and I don't know what March Madness success is and all that. I guess winning the Final Four of the national championship, but Big 12 basketball is as good as a conference, as there is in the country. Maybe like, the Big 10 is for football right now. So it's just fun to watch. If you're a sports fan, tune in because you're going to see a good game every single night.
Yeah, and again, I don't know. It's way too early, but you were talking about Duke and Carolina, and I got to say that 1-2 punch of Cam Boozer and Isaiah Evans at Duke is unbelievable. Watching their second half effort against Louisville last night was I mean, again, they look like the best team in the ACC, and I only say that because, and as I said, it's a little early, and SMU's a good team with Boopy Miller, but their win against Carolina on Saturday certainly was an eyebrow raiser, not only for how good SMU was, but again, can Carolina play well on the road? It was certainly a stiff challenge. But as I said, right now, Duke, to me, it looks like the standout team in the ACC with that 1-2 punch of Evans and Boozer.
Absolutely. I had the pleasure of going and watching them in person in Cameron Indoor last month, and just Boozer is a big dude. He is your legit, when you think of an NBA player watching college basketball, he is that guy in person. He's fun to watch. Hit that big shot last night, down toward the end of the game, that 3-pointer last night at Louisville. So Duke is a fun, Shire. I don't know if he gets the credit nationally that maybe he should. That I don't even know if maybe he gets the credit locally here in the state that he should. After following Coach K, that program hasn't dipped. The only thing he hasn't done is won the national title yet. But, he had as good a team to win it last year, in San Antonio, and he's probably got as good a team back right now, as he had last year. So, and he had 5 guys starting in the NBA last year in the lineup. So, what he's done, I think, just taking over for a legend, one of the greatest coaches in the history of the sport, and that program not to dip at all. And, no, he hasn't won the national title yet, but you could almost argue, he's getting the recruiting classes in at the same level or maybe a little bit higher than Coach K there at the end. what John Shire's done at Duke is as impressive a coaching job in any sport in the country, in my opinion, at the college level there's been.
You're absolutely right. It's not easy to follow a guy like Mike Krzyzewski, and I kept, and I think a lot of us kept thinking, because you're right. I think he had maybe 1 year where they didn't make the tournament, or 1 year where they were maybe a little off. But I mean, for the most part, he's kept them right there as strong, or as I said, it's almost as if Coach K's still there. So I would say that's impressive. And so, and I don't think we give, because I'll tell you, down the road, he's seen it. Hubert Davis feels like he's been on the hot seat a couple times at North Carolina, trying to follow Roy Williams, which has not been an easy task. And this right now is probably one of his better teams that he's had since he's been a head coach.
And my thing with Carolina, and I love them to death, don't get me wrong, there's such history intertwined between Kansas and Carolina. Bill Self says it all. Kansas probably not Kansas without Carolina, and Carolina probably not Carolina without Kansas. So there's so much tradition and history there intertwined. I'm a Carolina fan, in the dark, watching what they do. I don't think there's been a lot of play. Their NLI roster is a pretty darn expensive one over there in Chapel Hill, in college basketball. So I think that's just the interesting monkey in the room there a little bit, that, when they invested a little bit more into that roster, all of a sudden Hubert Davis this year looking, a little bit better of a coach than maybe the last year or two. It's a sign of today's game. It is what it is. You put those resources into it, man, those win columns seem to increase a little bit too. So I'm glad what they've done in Carolina doing that. And, Hubert Davis is right back on top. He's every indication I've seen, the things I watch, and I like watching coaches. I turn on games, and if the camera angle on one of these big networks is behind the bench, I'm looking for another game, because I like to see coaches' demeanors. I like to watch coaches. I like to see what they do. And Hubert Davis just does it the right way, it seems like. In everything you read about him and see about him, he's in it to turn young men, into men, and make society better, and things like that with guys that come through the Carolina program. So I'm a big fan of Hubert Davis, and I like watching everything he does.
It's a great transition, because you brought up a couple of things that I think are going to fit this transition well. One is, yes, it takes money to compete at the level, and that changes things, especially. So I'm saying the transition is over to football, because for sure you got to spend money to put together a roster. However, it's not as if you don't have to have the right coaching in place. So you were talking about coaches, and Curt Cignetti has been this incredible story. And I know Indiana threw a lot of money at their football program, but I've been saying this week. So did Ohio State, so did Texas, so did Alabama, so did insert your school here. I'm sure a lot of schools spend a lot of money on their rosters, but it takes the team, the organization, the coaches, how important that is. And so I think the job that Curt Cignetti's done has been fantastic. And then you look over at Ole Miss, and this is where the coach has already left. The head coach that led them to the season that they had, he's already at LSU. They've got Charlie Weiss, who I guess he's going back to LSU, but he's leading the team. They got a group of kind of a hodgepodge of coaches leading Ole Miss, and yet here they are. And so it's just interesting, the new culture of college sports, and including college football, where you've got names like Ole Miss and Indiana in the Final Four. Miami's the only team that's won a championship amongst these four teams. But I got to say, just let's focus on those two stories right there, Coach, because I think it's just you can't say enough about what Curt Cignetti's done at Indiana and turning that whole program, especially when in that conference, Ohio State and Michigan, I'm sure, spend a whole lot more than Indiana does. And then what Ole Miss is doing in light of the shakeup in the coaching staff that they got going on right there. But I think those are two incredible stories.
No, they absolutely are, and kind of polar opposites a little bit. But if you want to start with Ole Miss, what just on the surface is an absolute debacle between LSU and Ole Miss. Like, but I understand both sides, and I get both sides.
Yeah.
I don't know that if I was institution A, I'd want my coaches coaching the other one. And then I get, if I am that one and they are coming back to help me coach, well, man, the portal thing is open. What prevents them from saying, man, I'm jumping ship to go over here because the grass is a little bit greener. You should come with me. Like, I just don't see where that's kind of
they're rivals
either.
And they're rivals too, Coach. I mean, these two schools don't like each other. They're right next to each other. It's like I said, that's another dynamic about that whole LSU Ole Miss thing.
You can make the argument. Well, what's best for the kids? Leave the coaches in place. What's best? But was that the motivation when these institutions got together and made these coaching swaps and changes?
Yeah,
the kids weren't involved in that. So I think that's just kind of a hidden throw out, try to cover the mess up. So I get both sides. I get both ways. I get maybe why the head coach can't be there. But I think you just got to kind of sit at the table and understand the times that we're in and what you're going to allow and what you're not going to allow. And so much probably goes on behind the scenes that the media and fans don't understand or get. If they can make it make sense for the prize. At the end of the day, it's the sport that has let everybody down in the deal. You can just Google Nick Saban or any of the big networks talk about the transfer portal and all that. But until they change the way the portal is, I'm not saying get rid of it. I'm not a proponent of getting rid of the portal. But until they change the calendar, maybe like Oregon, Dan Lanning has suggested, move, take a regular season game off, move the playoffs up, play every weekend in December, the national championship at New Year's, open the portal the week after, and everybody's good. I think that's probably a strong case for something that would make more sense. But it's the sport, the lack of having anybody in control, including the NCAA, in control of the sport. It just kind of truly is the wild, wild west, and it is what it is. But as a fan, I tell this to my buddies all, why complain? Yeah. Enjoy it. We got the luxury of turning it on 5 minutes before it starts and turning it over 5 minutes after it's over. So just enjoy it, root for what you want to root for, find the storyline you want to find, and go with it. Which leads me into what you said, Cignetti at Indiana. I just think in this day and age of NLI money and all, let's just make it public. We can look at any professional athlete and see what they're making in their contract. Just make it public and let it be known. Because we may be bagging on a student athlete thinking he's making X amount of money and he's really not. And then we might not be looking at somebody or critiquing them a little bit more, and they're making way more than what we perceive to think they are. I just think that plays into the game in today's era where we're at. And then what these schools are actually spending. 60 Minutes did a thing with Indiana and made Kurt Cinetti seem almost like an angel, and I win everywhere I go, Google me and all that. But when I'll Google you, and you ain't really won the big game yet either. You might have been there, but you ain't actually done it. So, you won at Elon, but you didn't actually win a big game there. You got to James Madison, you didn't actually win the big game there. So you haven't actually won the big game, though you do win games, and you got to give credit, where credit's due for that. But, there's also rumblings in the media world how much money they've actually spent at Indiana. And it's not quite what they're exactly telling you on the surface they've actually spent. It's a whole lot more when you get Mark Cuban, who sold the Dallas Mavericks and is now high, just like Patrick Mahomes is high end with that billionaire oil guy at Texas Tech. Mark Cuban is that way at Indiana right now. So is it kind of a surprise where they're at? Do those kids care about, an outdated stadium? Do those kids care about Indiana football 5 years ago? Or are they getting paid pretty handsomely and they're putting a good product out on the field right now, on top of that? And, I can't fault them for that either. So I think it's good for the sport. Good. You don't want, as a basketball guy, that's probably the knock on football all these years. Well, you could name 10 Division I football schools at the beginning of the season, and you had the national championship somewhere in that 10. Because of March Madness, you don't necessarily get that in basketball. Now with the NLI area, man, you've got an Indiana, sitting there in the thing. You got a Texas Tech, even though they got beat the other day. You got Texas Tech in the college football playoff. You got 2 group of 5s in the college football playoff. The field is even. And even when I go to basketball with you, we just got off that topic. Mm-hmm. Couldn't you give me a dozen basketball teams across the country to come March Madness time probably would have a pretty good chance of making the Final Four.
Yeah.
And that's based on now NLI. So instead of 5 or 6, now we're getting to a 12 or 15 that we say, hey, got a roster that could get there. So it's just made things more competitive, more fun. I get it. But the storylines, that's why we're fans. Fans short for fanatical. I hear that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we're fans. Like, we love the drama between LSU and Ole Miss. We love the drama that Kirk Cinetti just seems like that dude you want to go have a beverage with, and sit and talk sports and life with. Well, that's what I don't know if you've seen a little meme of him giving a little gun salute over there to Pat McAfee or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, that's just a dude's dude that it's hard not to root for, because, he does win. So it's just fun, man. It's just, if you're a sports fan, I tell this to some of my guys all the time too, set aside the NLI thing, set aside the portal, enjoy sports, because right now it's such at a good competitive level across the board. It's fun, and then you, like I just said, fanatical, we can get into fan sidebar conversations about NLI money and this and that, or who's playing hard or who's not. But that's what makes our world of sports so much fun too.
One, I think it's great the campus, the on-campus playoff games, the environments are fantastic. 2, the fact of the matter is the teams that have bye weeks are 1-7. Indiana's the only team to have won having a bye week in this college football playoff. And I think we all know it's going to expand at some point. So why not? I mean, how excited are you if we can figure out a way to get this thing to 16 teams next year? As I said, I think that's really as fair as it can get. And definitely, as we can see, it doesn't appear that having a bye week is of any benefit to anybody except Indiana, as far as that goes. But the rumblings are we may hear such a thing in the coming weeks, that the college football playoff would expand to 16. Are you all for that?
I am, but I also think you just got to have some conversations, which probably is the failure of the whole thing. They just can't get everybody in the same room to agree on some things. You're going to have the haves and have-nots. You're going to have the power fours, and you're going to have the ones that aren't the power fours. There's a difference. No disrespect. I tout ECU up as much as I can because I like going over there. There's a difference between walking on ESU or ECU's football facility and then walking down to Alabama. I mean, it is what it is. So I like the 16-team format because you're not going to miss the national champion. There's no way in college football you're going to miss the national champion if you put 16 teams together to play for it. It's not going to be one of those debates where team ranked number 28 had a chance to be in there and got screwed for being in there. That's not going to happen. Not in college football. So I'm a fan of it, but there's got to be some conversations. What are the bowls and what do the bowls look like?
Yes.
Because right now, too many people, old school people, are still, man, the bowls, and they mean this. They mean absolutely nothing. And with the transfer portal, you're probably playing with a skeleton team anyway when you get there. And then win or lose, the old theory of, well, that props you into the spring and into the next season. Does it? Because when the portal opens, some of those guys you won with are probably jumping in that portal, and your roster in the fall is going to look a whole lot different than the team that just won that bowl game anyway. So if you go to 16, what are the bowls? What do they mean? Because I still think they're beneficial in some way, shape, and form. They can be beneficial. But I think you just got to decide how that is, because you had a whole bunch of teams this year opt out of playing in bowl games. And I don't think that's a bad thing either, especially if you're going in with a skeleton team and you don't know why waste them. Because a lot of things I think fans forget, there's a financial commitment on the team side to go to some of these bowl games. It's not just a free venture. Hey, we're going to Vegas and playing in this bowl, or hey, we're going down here to Orlando. Well, we've got to sell some tickets. And if we don't sell those tickets, we're on the hook for that. And maybe we only get a certain amount of money for a couple of days out here. I know Nebraska, being a fan of theirs a little bit, they spent 2 additional days in Vegas after the bowl because they gave their kids kind of a pseudo Christmas break. Hey, let's go have fun in Vegas. We're going to work you up to the bowl, and then we're going to give you 48 hours to go have fun in Vegas.
Nice.
So that, that costs somebody some money somewhere. They didn't recoup all that from the bowl. So, what are the bowls? What do they mean? I think that's a good thing. Is there another avenue, like a Division I AA, where there's another national champion? Does the group of 5 kind of get together and say, hey, what's our realistic possibility of winning this thing if we only get 1 or 2 picks in it? Can we go have our own 12-team, deal like 1AA does? Because I just think in that theory, if ECU was playing for a national title, and even though it wasn't the college football playoff one, I feel like Dowdy Ficklen still has a great atmosphere. And let's just be honest, does that group of 4 team or that group of 5 team have a chance in the college football playoff? Last couple of years, they haven't. They just kind of got boat raced, in those games. So I just think somewhere along the line, I guess to answer your question, I'm a proponent of the 16. I like it. I'd like to see more games on college campuses, like you said. Those atmospheres are just unbelievable. It's up another notch from a rivalry game, it seems like. So put more of them on college campuses. Give those teams and those players, the opportunity to benefit from one more home game because they've earned it through their play through the regular season. I like 16 teams, but I just think you got to address in the sport, some of the other questions too. What can the lower level team, and I know lower level people hate hearing that, but let's just be honest in the equation. What can they gain and make it most beneficial for them, at their level, just as much as those big power 4s are doing for themselves in the money grab with the college football playoff? Because if you watched, and I'm going to skip this, Mark, it's going to be bad of me as a sports fan, the game the other night, the football game the other night, the national championship, that was won on the field goal there in overtime. The 1AA, I guess what do they call it, the football championship subdivision or whatever. Man, those kids cared. Those fan bases cared. That stadium was rocking. That national championship trophy meant something to them, and they're not in the college football playoff. And I think if you went and looked at Division II, you'd see the same thing. So I guess my point just being, as a small guy in Eastern North Carolina, there's something out there for those lower level teams. Let's find it and let's make it enjoyable. And at the end of the day, it's only good for the kids if that's what we're trying to do. So those kids are a little bit different than these Power 4 kids. They're not getting the NLI money that some of these other ones are. Some of the education and the experiences mean a little bit more to them than some of those other guys. Let's reward them for it, because at the end of the day, as a sport, college football, we've got the money to go do it. So let's go do it right.
Yeah, I was going to say that do you know what the most watched bowl was?
Oh, the most watched bowl? I have no idea. I'd be interested to know.
The Pop-Tarts Bowl.
Pop-Tarts Bowl. Who does an outstanding job of promoting it.
Right. And the second one was the Mayo Bowl, because, again, if you're not going to be, if you're going to be indeterminate as far as what we're watching, I don't know as far as the game, then be interesting as far as the sponsors and making something fun. And I don't know how to fix the bowls either, because you're probably like me. I'm only interested in watching. I watch the in-state schools. And then maybe if I'm a pseudo fan of a certain team or a game that sort of like the Texas-Michigan game was interesting to me because, there was Arch Manning, the Michigan controversy. I thought maybe those kids would definitely want to get out there and want to play for something. But in the end, I still don't know what I'm watching. I said, I don't know. Is this the real team? Is this going to be the team next year? And then you brought up or we're talking about this portal right now, and I don't think we even we're addressing the fact that if let's say you get a transfer now, or you get a guy to stay right now, if I'm not mistaken, they can still transfer at some point after spring practice. So, I mean, we're not done with guys moving and transitioning over, because you definitely still see guys making moves, pre-summer. So as I said, the whole thing it needs structure. And until we get all these people in a room together and somebody can relinquish, and this is the problem, relinquish some of the power and let some guardrails be set up. And I think that includes top end, a middle end of some sort, where we're Because as I said, it's hard. You got 120, 130 Division I teams. You're only going to have 16 teams make the playoff. It's hard to get in there, et cetera. Yes, there needs to be guardrails with all that stuff. But again, when does it happen? Will it ever happen? I don't know. But I can tell you there's definitely pieces of it that just need addressing. And as I said, the bowls, the fact that we've got multiple transfer windows, I think these are all things that need to someone needs to address them, Coach.
And it almost makes me wonder if they don't love the chaos. Is it good for business to have the chaos? Because
we're talking about it.
Yeah, we're two little known guys in Eastern North Carolina, and we know how to fix the thing. You get a leader of the sport, to lead the thing, and you get all the coaches involved.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get the administrators that sign the checks and collect everything to go along with it. That's way more complicated, but it's pretty easy to do it. Seems like they have zero interest in trying to get that done. They'd rather all get in front of a microphone and give opinions, but nobody wants to try to band together and make it happen. So it almost makes me wonder as a fan, do they love the chaos and what it brings and the notoriety and today's 2026, not 2025, the allure of clicks and likes and shares and all that kind of stuff. Do they love the chaos that they don't want to get it all straightened out and right? I don't know. I think it's just interesting as a fan to sit back and watch and critique it, but they could fix it if they wanted to. It just doesn't seem like there's really a strong push to go get it fixed.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, let's go from the college world to yesterday. As soon as I'm done with the show, and I have a guy that comes on, and he's the big Baltimore Ravens fan, and we're talking all about John Harbaugh and how everything goes. The Ravens collapse, and then literally about 3 minutes after I'm done with the show yesterday, it gets announced that John Harbaugh's out after 18 years as head coach with the Baltimore Ravens. Then the reports come out that there's only 6 vacancies, or there were 7, and one of them is the Ravens, so they're not contacting him. So apparently some team that has a coach in place contacted. I think John Harbaugh will find a job for sure. But how surprised were you to see that John Harbaugh found himself unemployed yesterday?
Well, I think you, like any sports fan, you heard the grumblings that, it was going to be him or Tomlin, who lost that game. And that was just a crazy, wild game, the way that thing ended. I was surprised. I just put him, and I'm not trying to copy somebody else, but I say on social media or whatever, but somebody equated, one of the big pundits equated it to Bill Belichick separating from New England. Kind of same thing, Andy Reid separating from Philly. If the Chiefs shouldn't decide to do that with Andy Reid today, it's just like, there's that Mount Rushmore of some guys, and you think he would be on it. But man, 18, I read some things this morning, Mark, that said maybe he lost confidence from Lamar Jackson. Maybe he lost the locker room a little bit. 18 years in the NFL is a long time. I guess when it goes by, but man, he seemed to be a constant winner. He seemed to have things going in the right direction. His teams were always pretty much competitive. He's not going to have it. My Chiefs groups, they're on wanting a new offensive coordinator so bad. They'll believe any storyline you throw in front of them. But, people having a pipe dream, there's our dream offensive coordinator. No, it's not. That guy's going to get another head coaching job in the NFL, not in college, in the NFL. It's not going to be a coordinator. I'm not surprised. You always want to take things you see in the media with a little grain of salt, but I'm not surprised that I think it was reported last night that two NFL teams with sitting head coaches inquired about his services. That doesn't surprise me at all. Because if you look at some of the teams, you think, man, am I in a better situation today with this guy? Or can I go if I fire him and I can go get John Harbaugh, where am I at for the next 5 to 10 years? So I was completely surprised Baltimore did it, but I can understand in today's world sometimes, you look back and you see Andy Reid, Andy Reid had the luxury of Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid intertwining and lightning striking, at the same time together. But you look back and say, man, why did Philly ever get rid of him? That kind of thing. And so I think you kind of had that little, you fired Harbaugh at Baltimore. Who are you going to really go get? But, we're going through a little bit of it here at West Craven High School, to be honest with you.
Oh, yeah.
You know, our football coach left, and we're finding that next best fit, and you want to find that fit for you. And you know, if Harbaugh and Baltimore just kind of ran out of time together, they ran out of time. But you know, they'll find a fit. But I was surprised, not pleasantly. I was surprised that they did move on from him, just because you think, as an outside person looking in at Baltimore, they were in good shape with him. But, you know, if you have a separation and it could jumpstart you, maybe it jumpstarts both of them, because it worked out for Andy Reid pretty well. Maybe not so much for Bill Belichick right now, but it worked out for Andy Reid real well. So
it was working out for Bill when he was doing the Manning cast, and I thought he should just stay doing that. You know, I got to say with John Harbaugh, and again, I don't know, because the rumors are that this Shula kid, the grandson of Don Shula, is the front runner for this Baltimore job, and you better be right about the hire, because I'll say this for John Harbaugh, he did. Zay Flowers fumbled. He didn't make Zay Flowers fumble. He didn't make Mark Andrews drop that pass, and he certainly didn't make that rookie kicker miss that field goal. But you end up being responsible for those things when you're the head coach. And so, you know, I'll say this: when Andy Reid, so you were talking about Andy Reid leaving Philadelphia, so I can give you the other end of that. Look, it worked out for both teams in the end. Andy Reid ends up winning Super Bowls with Kansas City, and Philadelphia ends up winning Super Bowls as well after the fact. But you will remember, and I do now, as I said, I hated the move, and I was like, what are the Eagles doing? You can't get rid of Andy Reid. What are you talking about? The guy's got us because I felt it was like one of those, you know, like Dean Smith, who he's the guy who's a great coach, gets to the big game but can't win it, until he finally did. And that ended up being Andy Reid's story. It just ended up being on another team. And if I remember, again, for Philadelphia, they had to go through Chip Kelly. And again, the Super Bowls they've won, it was two different coaches. So it was Nick Sirianni and Peterson. So as I said, it's not been so much a smooth ride for Philadelphia, and for Baltimore. As I said, you better get that coach hire right, because if John Harbaugh ends up in Atlanta with Bijan Robinson and all of that, I mean, it wouldn't shock me if they're winners. Or again, I wouldn't shock me for him to be a winner anywhere, to be honest with you. So, so if you're Baltimore, the one thing you don't want to do is be struggling in a year or two and watching John Harbaugh succeed elsewhere. Right. So, and I think that could happen.
And I always laugh, you know, I get your opinion on this. I always laugh when people say the NFL is scripted. Well, I always fire back. And why ain't the Dallas Cowboys won a Super Bowl in however many years?
Right.
Or deep in the playoffs, because the number one franchise probably in the world, and they script them to lose every year. There ain't no way that's better for business than if they were to win it, you know, every couple of years. So I always laugh at that. But then to stay on this coaching firing topic, you know, Vegas lets Pete Carroll go after 1 year. Their biggest mistake probably was letting Pete Carroll bring Geno Smith with him. They ain't got a quarterback. But then when you look at the history, and I read this stat, if it's correct, 15 coaches in 30 years.
Yeah.
You know, which is kind of 2 years, you know, a coach. Like, how do you expect anything to happen with that? Like, I don't know. You wonder sometimes what teams are doing, what their motivations are, what they're seeing. Does Vegas need a winner, or does Vegas carry itself because every home game's a home game for the other team, because so many people, you know, the California people can still come across the border to watch Vegas, watch the Raiders, the traditional Raider fan. But then everybody in the country that wants to go watch their team wants to go make that trip to Vegas when it comes. So, you know, it's just interesting to look and see, man. So some organizations that seem like are built for failure, and then some just kind of, you know, when they're organized and unified, you know, and you would think of Baltimore is that way. Philly seems to be that way right now. Kansas City's that way. You know, you could, you know, Jacksonville, pleasantly surprised, has jumped in there and been that. You know, which selfishly I'm kind of rooting for Trevor Lawrence and Jacksonville because of that Clemson tie right there. I just think that's a feel-good story, kind of like Tim Tebow. It's just he won in high school, he won in college. Man, if he could go win one in the NFL, that's just a feel-good human story for him. But
it's a heck of a turnaround they did at Jacksonville.
But you just let, there's a lot of 49er fans out in Eastern North Carolina, Mark. I mean, you probably know that.
Oh, yeah.
Probably, it's just a national brand. But how you not root for them? The son of a coach, and he's doing well and worked his way in.
As an Eagle fan, I can tell you it's really easy for me not to root for the 49ers.
There you go.
So easy. And I'll say, look, I want to say this. You were talking about, it all starts with ownership. It really starts at the top. And I'm going to tell you what's interesting about that. The Raiders and the Cowboys. Let me tell you my interesting tie with this. So I recently watched the Many Lives of Lane Kiffin. I don't know if you've ever seen this.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
So do you remember when he gets fired by the Raiders and Al Davis is sitting there and he's got this pinpoint PowerPoint presentation of why Lane Kiffin should have been fired and he's a horrible person and all these other things. And when I saw that, I thought the first thing that popped in my mind was Jerry Jones. Al Davis was a victim of his success, and I think he didn't allow football people to do football stuff. He really thought he was the centerpiece. And if you want to know why the Cowboys are bad, I really think it goes back to their ownership. I think Jerry Jones is a victim of his own success. That team is so popular, but he cannot get out of the way of making football decisions that I think ultimately do hurt his team. Maybe not as bad as Al Davis did, but I do think his son, Mark Davis, by the way, for the Raiders organization, has just picked up where his dad's left off. To be honest with you, so that's kind of my theory on the Raiders and Cowboys.
And I think we talked about this at one point. The Dallas Cowboy documentary is really good.
It is good, yeah.
But Jerry Jones said it right toward the beginning. I buy this franchise. This is the best, soap opera there is. Well, man, that's what it's been for how many years? Like, that's exactly like. So then I questioned his motive. Is he making more money being what he's being, or does he really? You really can't think your way. He's a good businessman, all that, but if you're not having success, at some point you got to look yourself in the mirror and say, "Hey, I got to do something a little bit different if I want to hoist that trophy again." But for whatever reason, they don't. They keep being what they're being, but they make money. There's no NFL. I argue this with my Chiefs friends. Mad that the Chiefs are crossing state lines, which really means absolutely nothing other than a 15-minute drive, either closer or further for everybody in the area. Nobody's losing money. These NFL franchises aren't losing money, or they wouldn't have one. They done sold it and moved on. So at the end of the day, winning the trophy, making money, like there's so many decisions that go into everything that I'm just glad I can be a fan and enjoy it, because the coaching job being done right now in Seattle, and maybe, Mark, when you start unpacking some things, did that have anything to do with John Harbaugh being fired yesterday? Because that guy was his defensive assistant.
That's right.
Goes with his brother to Michigan and becomes a defensive coordinator for a year. Highly touted by his brother to go to Michigan with his his other brother. Calls plays for a year as defensive coordinator, comes right back to Baltimore as defensive coordinator. Now look at the defense he's put together out in Seattle, just a couple years later.
They can win when Sam Darnold's throwing like 4 interceptions and they're beating teams. It's unheard of.
So when you see bizarre. That, and we have guys on staff like that, does that lead into something, that like what we saw yesterday finally? Well, because there's a lot of, I'll just tell you that there's a lot of grumblings of that in Chiefs Kingdom right now. Hey, Andy Reid's this and all that, but as a new younger guy, maybe can push us over to the top. And as fans, that's the luxury we have to see. I think they're crazy, absolutely 100%. But, I can see where people come from that angle. And it just makes you wonder, hey, that success, he's having out there in Seattle, did that give ownership a little bit of, in the NFL, you can't just go rob the other coach again. But do they see something, in a coordinator or something, and then that leads to the decisions that they make. So it's always fun, Mark. It's why we're in this business, man. It's fun. And
I love it. I only got a couple more questions. The first one is this: Chiefs fan. You're my go-to Chiefs fan guy. Have we seen Travis Kelce play his last game in the NFL? Because I don't think he's going to another team. I think it's either retirement or he's playing for Kansas City again next year.
I'll give you 2 options. Do you want me as a fan or me as a Kansas City fan?
Give me both.
I think that's two different answers. Me as a fan.
Give me both.
Me as a fan, I think there's an opportunity that he's going to come back.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, unless just the outside thing is just so big for him.
Yeah.
I think there's something. They were all there for his last game in Kansas City on Christmas Day.
Yes.
That lost to Denver. His family and Taylor Swift, unless they stayed just 100% incognito in this thing, weren't in Vegas for what would have been his last game of his career. And, he broke another record in the yards thing out there in Vegas in that.
Yeah.
I would just think, being the person he's turned into be, if that was truly the last game, they would have all been there. And so as a fan, I kind of look and say, hey, was that his last game or not? As a Chiefs fan, man, I would love him to come back. He's basically an unrestricted free agent right now because his contract was up.
Yep.
We're $54 million over the cap. Going to have to trim that going into 26. Mm-hmm. I don't know that we can afford him to come back, even if he wants to come back, unless he just does something completely stupid, in my opinion, which would be like, man, I'm giving such a hometown discount. This ain't going to hurt you in the cap. Give me, and I get that side because, Taylor Swift's worth this amount of money and he's already worth this amount of money. But that ain't the way the real world works either. So as a Chiefs fan, I just don't know the NFL's set up for your superstars to not kind of break your heart at the end. Tom Brady left New England, went to Tampa. As everybody wants to say, well, Patrick Mahomes is going to retire as a Chief. The league ain't really set up for that. There's going to be a time and place where does his contract make business sense for the last couple of years of his career of what's in our, long-term interest. And I think that's kind of where Kansas City's at. Is it entirely Travis Kelce's decision to come back or not come back? Or would we prefer, because of our cap situation and we need some younger blood in here, maybe you need to slide to go live that LA life with Taylor Swift might be a good option. I think maybe she has a home in Nashville. It's a little bit closer to that Philly area, that Ohio area where he's from and her. Would that make a lot of sense with a new head coach coming in and a young quarterback? Or is the strong just so tired, so strong between him and Patrick Mahomes that, if I want to come back, I'm going to come back. But I just don't know as an organization it makes business the sense to bring him back. And, that's sometimes where your favorite players in professional sports in this day and era don't always end up with you at the very end. So,
yeah,
I want to say he's done because of the time. But then again, Mark, I'm on this train. Love what the Chiefs would have done. I would have traded anything in the world growing up as a kid for these last, 10 years as a Chiefs fan. But at some point, you can't keep the band together, but for so long, it might be time for him to go, if you want to keep playing, great. I just don't know it can be here, which would be disappoint a lot of fans. But, I just don't know. I think so many extra games, the Super Bowl runs, I think they over a season worth of playoff games the last 5 years. I think 21 extra games this organization's played. I can see where players are tired, coaches are tired. I can see him taking a little time off, but I would venture to say I think he's going to come back. I just don't know it'll be with Kansas City.
Yeah, you don't think about the wear and tear, but if you make 5 runs to Super Bowl / or the conference championship games, you're playing 20 games a year, 20 competitive games a year. It's 100 games in a 5-year span. Anyways, I know we're going to run out of time, and I just got to say because there's only 2. I only got 2 more things. One is, how about them Panthers? Probably didn't get in there the way they wanted to because you lose your last 2 games, but lost to a really good Seattle team and hung in there. The Tampa Bay game wasn't great, but look, I think when you've missed the playoffs, this is your first time in since 2017. Probably the best thing for that fan base was this boost. Now they're playing the Rams again. Can they, make that magic happen again? I'm not sure. The Vegas people certainly don't think so. But your thoughts on the Panthers?
I think the Rams are pretty good and probably win this game Saturday. But I'll pat me and you on the back. We've been talking about how fun they've been to watch all year.
Yes.
They just kind of snuck up on people and being local and all that. It's been fun to watch the Panthers and what they're doing because I think some people maybe there at Canales, some people were like, can he really get the job done as the head coach? But, him and the quarterback have really gelled, really meshed. And they've been on a fun run. Kind of crazy how that works. You can kind of backdoor your way into a division championship there, but they did it. You can't take that away from them. And I think we talked about this earlier on one of your shows too, about how the owner just kind of seemed to have disappeared.
Yes.
He was out in front, and it seemed to be getting bashed by the media, getting bashed by the fan base, doing all kinds of crazy things that seemed selfish. He took a step back, and all of a sudden they're in the playoffs and won the division. So I think that's interesting sometimes how that works, because we've been talking about owners here. But I think LA probably just I think they're kind of a Super Bowl favorite. They're they came in, got beat by them before. I don't think they're going to make this. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't spend quite a few days in Charlotte leading up to this game, because it just seems that's what NFL teams do. But I would be pleasantly surprised if Carolina can hang into it. But that is nothing disrespectful for the Panthers. Now, I hope every Panther fan go. I'll be honest with you. Me and my son talked about, had I not had the wrestling tournament on Saturday here, we were going to buy a couple of tickets and go to the game. Just to be be non-partial and root for the Panthers a little bit. But so that just shows you how excited I think the state should be for them being in the playoffs. But
absolutely,
I hope every Panther fan enjoys the heck out of it, roots as loud as they can root, and regardless if they get beat, man, they've had a great season, and that organization seems on the uptick, and it's good for business in the Carolinas, good for shows like yours. How do you not root for the hometown team here in this one?
I'm absolutely rooting for them. As long as they don't play Philadelphia, we're good. I want to say this is the 1 year, though, and we've been seeing this parity for years, but I feel like even in the most recent years, you'd see there's just a handful of teams in each conference that are just kind of stand above. Now, again, there are some teams that do, and I do think there's some teams that are coming in here. Like I would put the Panthers in there, like Packers don't look super healthy. You can probably pick out a couple of teams. Steelers, I'm not really sure, but I'll say this. Any team that wins it this year, I wouldn't be shocked. I got to be honest with you. This is the most open I can remember any playoffs heading into it, where I don't look and see, that team's the favorite or that team's again, all of these are really good teams, and the NFL has arrived at this on any given day, on any given game. You just don't know what's going to happen, and I think this will be an unpredictable playoffs. What do you think?
I think it will too, because I'm sitting here telling you, I think this team or that team. Man, I am personally, Mark. I ain't got a dog in the fight this year. I'm rooting for Jacksonville, Taylor Lawrence. I'm rooting for the Panthers because they're the hometown team. I'm rooting for the 49ers because even though a couple of my friends are diehard 49ers, and I hate that fans, and I hate that, but their organization just seems to be so well aligned in everything. And then the Brock Purdy story, he's not getting paid, obviously, right now what he's worth. I think that's something to be said. And then, that defense in Seattle, their stadium's crazy and loud anyway. But how do you just not root in a day and age where everybody thinks throwing the football around the yard, scoring all these points are important, and they are. But Seattle will do it with defense, and they do it physically. They'll smack you in the mouth and won't help pick you up. So how do you not enjoy that watching football? So that's 4 teams right off the get-go that I think could win the whole thing. So I think that kind of answers your question right there. Wide open as wide open could be. Go have some fun, enjoy it, and I would much rather be in it. Just like you as a Philly fan, I'd much rather be in it than have a rooting interest every weekend. But it's kind of exciting a little bit just to say, hey, I ain't got a dog in this fight. Let's go watch some good football and not have to worry about the outcome. So let's just make that 1 year, though. Let's make it 1 year. Let's get back in the playoffs next year for the Chiefs.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. But, man, it should be fun. For everybody, I want to remind you again, basketball on this Wednesday, Pamlico girls and boys varsity games, and wrestling on Saturday. Every team in the conference get there early. What did you say? 8:30?
8:30 wrestling. Yep, 8:30
right.
Wrestling starts on Saturday.
Coach, always great to talk to you. Have a great Wednesday, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, Mark, I appreciate it.
For everybody else, we'll see you tomorrow.